Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Hey, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining us for our third installment on the lie of aging. Now, I've covered the intro in show number 12, gave you a background in this whole series and why I say that aging is a lie. If you're hearing this for the first time, I heavily encourage you to go back and listen to show number 12, which will give you the background on why I say that and where our thought processes lead us to believe this ignorance that we deteriorate as time passes on the calendar. I followed that up with the first of 4 parts of this 5-part series, talking about the components of ability. And the reason I say that is because we're talking about aging, and there are 5 components of aging: the genetics, lifestyle, healthcare, nutrition, fitness. Of those 5, 4 are 100% controllable. Now, though we're talking about ability, remember now, we are talking about aging, but there are 5 components of aging: genetics, stress, nutrition, exercise, and healthcare. Of those 5, 4 of them are 100% controllable. Genetics is not. You can pick your nose, but you can't pick your parents. But stress, nutrition, exercise, and healthcare, believe it or not, you have 100% control over. But as I said in the first episode, we're not really talking about that. We're not talking about wrinkles. We're not talking about age spots. We're not talking about gray hairs. We're not talking about why your ears continue to grow. What we're talking about is that idea of, gosh, if I could just do everything I could do in high school, man, I'd be so happy. If you could do that all your life, you would not have what we consider aging, where you would not have gone backwards, you would not have deteriorated. And that idea is ability, not aging. And there are 4 components of ability: activity, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition and why nutrition is a component of ability and therefore a component on a controllable way of never deteriorating. Think about this. Let's say I have a home that, God forbid this does happen, I don't want it to, but let's say I have a home that gets knocked down every year. Every year just somebody comes over and knocks the darn thing down, and I have to rebuild it. So I build this really nice, strong house, and I'm all happy. I move in or whatever. It's bricks and mortar, and boy, it's built very, very strong, very well. Somebody comes and knocks it down. I go to build it back, but this time I didn't quite have the money. Didn't quite have the money to make it as nice as it was the first time. So I'm gonna use a little cheaper bricks. I'm gonna use a brick that when they did the mortar mixture, it had a little more water in it. They were a little lighter, a little cheaper. And I build the house again, and somebody comes and knocks it down again. Well, the next year I've got even less money. So therefore, I'm going to build something, a little more water in those masonry on that bricks, Maybe I don't go with plywood. I go with particle board this time. All right, you understand that whoever's knocking down my house is going to find it easier and easier every year because I'm using cheaper materials. I'm not using the same strong materials, the 100% quality I was using in the first house. Now, what's that got to do with aging and nutrition? Well, over time, either by lack of knowledge or habits, lifestyle, we tend to not put all the nutrients in that we always have or that we need. And if you slowly do that over time, you're building back that house weaker and weaker, which is the main reason nutrition affects ability. Therefore, it affects what people think of as aging. And I want to be clear about that when I say what people think of as aging, because as I've said several times before, and I'll repeat many, many more times, I'm sure, that aging is something we believe means deteriorating. And age does not happen to us. We happen to age. Adaptable effect. That's what we're doing. We're doing adaptable effects that affects this. In nutrition, many times those building blocks that we're putting back, we're not putting back as strong as they once were. And I'll show you what I mean. Think about sitting down to a meal with your family. And we're talking about all the kids together, parents, everybody together. And when you sat down for a meal, you had a good meal, most likely. And your mother most likely did not want you to go hungry. Made sure you had a little bit of everything. In those cases, the parents typically eat like the kids do. They eat like a lot of the same things the kid do. And many times they end up cleaning up after the children if the dog doesn't do it. What happens when the kids leave the house? One of the things that happens when the kid leaves the house is there's a lifestyle change that goes on. The parents tend to go to easier meal choices, something simple. It's just us. And they don't go through the trouble of making the full meals that they used to when the kids were there. So therefore, they're taking in less nutrients in most cases. And the first thing to go in that situation is protein. Now, why do I say that, and why is that important? Well, the reason I say it is that think about your protein sources. Your protein sources are your meat sources. When I say meat, I mean red meat, I mean fish, I mean chicken, tuna, these kind of things. Those are your main meat sources. We can talk about supplemental sources also, and you can talk about also secondary sources, your dairy products, your nuts, your few vegetables that actually have some, or beans or whatever, that have some protein in them. Those aren't primary sources, those are secondary sources. But typically, those primary sources of protein get eliminated from the meal, at least on a regular basis. And why? Because it's more expensive. They don't last that long. They're harder to keep, harder to maintain, harder to make, take more time. Therefore, they just kind of go away. We stop having as much protein in our meals. And here's why that's important. Your body is constantly metabolizing. I talk about that in the Metabolism podcast. Your body is constantly doing a systems operations assessment or systems assessment, looking at all the different body parts and thinking, okay, what are we using here? What are we not using here? Where do we need to rebuild? Where do we need to just get rid of? And even if you don't work out, even if you don't exercise, you're breaking down muscle tissue and you're regrowing muscle tissue. That's part of metabolism. In order to regrow muscle, you've got to have protein. Spoke of that in the protein podcast also. But you've got to have protein. If you don't have protein, you can't grow muscle, period, end of story, period. I don't care how much you work out. When you're exercising, you're breaking down muscle tissue. You're not building it. You're breaking it down so that you can feed it, recover, rest, and it will grow back. And grow back stronger if you're exercising. If you don't have that important protein component, you're going to lose muscle. And because all of us do this change in the lifestyle, therefore we start eliminating protein from our meal. And the rule of thumb is to have protein every meal, every day that ends in a Y, every day that came after yesterday and before tomorrow and all that kind of good stuff. Every day, every meal, you're supposed to have protein. If you're getting less than that, then you're not able to regrow muscle. Therefore, you start to deteriorate tissue. Therefore, you go backwards. And since we have it in our lifestyle, we think that is strictly because time passes on the calendar that we're deteriorating, and it's not. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. In case you're interested, there's several different recommendations on this, but the dietary reference intake of protein is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, or better yet, 0.36 grams per pound. That amounts to 56 grams per day for the average sedentary man, and 46 grams per day for the average sedentary woman. And actually, that's really a bare minimum. I'd actually recommend more, and one of the big reasons why I recommend more is make sure that you've got plenty of protein on board. And so your body will know what to do with it. It'll adjust what it needs, or it'll just synthesize what it needs, and then it will excrete the rest. There's something else that goes along with this. There's a misbelief problem we have with metabolism. I talk about this a lot. The metabolism decreases with age, which is just not true. And you can search that. I promise you'll come up with probably 1,000 articles, and not more, on why metabolism decreases with age. I did a Google search one time, and I just did it real quick, and this is what came up. I searched for why does metabolism decrease with age, and I came up with these headlines. Can you boost your metabolism? Is your metabolism slower at night? How do you use your basal metabolic rate to lose weight? Can a slow metabolism make you gain weight? How do you get a higher metabolism? Nothing more than calories in, calories out. That's all metabolism is. But it's going on all the time, and therefore you need those components of protein to make sure that you're regrowing muscle, you're able to make those changes and maintain strength. All right, that's my new sound, my new water bottle. Love it. This Contigo Personalized Fitness water bottle is awesome. Keeps my water cold and keeps me hydrated. And remember, every time you hear me drink water, I want you drinking water too. I've talked a lot about protein. That's one part of the quote-unquote fountain of youth. The other part is water. Everybody stay hydrated. Every time I take a drink, I want to hear you take a drink also.
And let's also note, this podcast is not sponsored by Contigo at all. No, however, it can be.
Absolutely.
Contigo,
absolutely.
We love you.
Yeah, I'm big fans of it. It's the reason we went through the trouble of ordering the bottle. And you have any questions about this particular episode or any others or any subject matter on health, fitness, and wellness, you can call me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also contact me via my Twitter handle, @TeamPE. That's @TeamPE. My email address is garrett@personaledgefitness.com, and that is also my website, personaledgefitness.com, and our Facebook page, Personal Edge Fitness. We're located in 513 West I-65 Service Road, Mobile, Alabama. We also do online programs, including our Catalyst and training online. But if you're interested in contacting us, have questions or comments about this, please do so. Remember, as you're listening to this on your favorite podcast location, make sure you like and share this. So we're talking about nutrition and how that affects deterioration, or what we consider aging. Another aspect of nutrition and this quote-unquote aging thing has to do with this ridiculous idea of good food and bad food. Now, I'm going to step on a lot of toes when I talk about this, I'm sure. But there is no such thing as good food and bad food. Good Lord, it's causing more obesity than it ever helped. I guarantee you that, and that's for a later podcast. But back in the 1950s is when we first started criminalizing food. And what's that got to do with anything? Well, if you look around, the people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they lived through the 50s, lived through this time when we started criminalizing food. And you've got somebody that, and maybe you're an individual, you've got a great work ethic, therefore you're going to take care of your responsibilities. You're going to work hard. You're going to be the best at your job. Well, if you have somebody like that, if you are somebody like that, typically when you hear what is the truth about a subject, especially your health, and you find out, wow, this is the thing. This is, boy, everybody's got to be doing this. You have to be doing this. Okay, it's being said a lot. Most likely with that work ethic, you're going to make sure that happens. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. In 1950 is the first time we ever criminalized food. The first thing we criminalized was red meat. Red meat was a bad thing. You shouldn't eat red meat. And I'm certain, no matter what your age is, you've heard that. I'm certain, no matter what your age is, you've heard something about limiting your intake of red meat for whatever reason. And that stems from Angel Keys and the heart healthy diet and the fact that they criminalize saturated fats and red meat. Well, what's that got to do with this whole aging thing? Where does that work into? Now, stick with me. I'll show you. People in their 70s, 80s, 90s that have lived through that time have lived through the criminalizing of red meat. They've lived through the criminalizing of pasta, which is the next thing that they had to get rid of because, which is funny, they started hating red meat. Therefore, they told everybody to center their meals around a LITE, light option, which was carbohydrates, which was pasta. If you're old enough, you'll remember the Spud bars. They didn't have just salad bars in restaurants, and especially the steak restaurants. They had Spud bars. You can go and get a potato filled up. This is when bagels became really huge, as a health food. They even had baked potato restaurants. Because that was that's the healthier, lighter option. And then after everybody went carb crazy, we decided, now we've got to hate carbs. Go back to our 70s, 80s, and 90 girls. Now we don't eat red meat. Now we don't eat carbohydrates. And then you've got to find the right type of fish and not this kind of protein, this kind of chicken that's got the additives and the whatever in it or whatever. And what happens is they slowly start picking these different parts of their food out that they can't have. And in many cases, you have people that actually become underweight. They actually make themselves underweight because they're not taking in enough calories. They adapt a lifestyle of taking in too few calories. And what do they have people tell them when they say, wow, you look great. You're so thin. THIN, folks, that's a 4-letter word. Thin is a 4-letter word. It's very dangerous, especially in these situations. Going back to what I'm saying, those 70s, 80s, 90 years old, we're supposed to hate red meat. Therefore, that stays with them all their life. They don't forget that. When these things are beat into you for so long, they're there. You're not going to dig them out of there. So when they go to eat a steak at a nice steak restaurant, there's going to be some bad feelings about that. I can't tell you how many clients that will go to a really nice steak restaurant we happen to have here in town. It's one of the finest restaurants we have here. They go there, and then after telling about, wow, the filet they got, the steak they got, they immediately follow it up with, well, but I don't eat that stuff very often. I every once in a while I have some red meat. I'll probably do 40 push-ups now, and I don't eat red meat. It's amazing the conversation that goes on with like that. There are clients that I have that they can't talk about going and having a steak without following it up with that conversation. That's how much they're trying to avoid red meat. Well, not only is it red meat, but avoid other things, avoid pasta, avoid other protein sources. Well, if you do that and you criminalize one of the biggest protein sources and the types of fish that you get in certain areas, or you're not supposed to get frozen chicken, whatever it is, you just keep criminalizing these things, people start eliminating them from the diet. Therefore, your choices of protein choices starts to get limited. And the fact that you're congratulated because you're thin, or congratulated because you don't take in as much, or you look around the table. This is hilarious. Think about this. Sitting at a table, you're there with, and pardon me, ladies, but I'm gonna pick on ladies a little bit. But there's a group of ladies together. They're having lunch together, and 3 of them order salads. The queen for a day food, salad. And one of them orders a nice lean steak, or even a hamburger. Who do they talk about? I promise you, it's not the ones with the salads. They're the ones wearing the crowns. No, they look down. They look down on that person that's eating that bad food. I actually spoke to a group of ladies. What a fantastic organization here in town. They invited me to go lunch with them. We all went to a local restaurant, and I had beat this point to death, talking about the fact you had to have protein every meal, every day. I did a Q&A sessions after it, talked about it. We went to the restaurant. I ordered a burger, and it's funny, when I was sitting down with them, they wanted me to order first, and I'm a Southern gentleman. I'm not going to order before the ladies order, And the reason they wanted me to order first is they wanted to see what was okay to eat, because if I didn't eat it, they weren't going to eat it, no matter what I said about the fact there's no such thing as bad food. And I do like I always do. I'm going to order me a nice protein or whatever. I think I had a burger, and if I didn't, I may have had a salad, but I had a piece of grilled chicken with it. And what did all of them order? Every single one of them ordered a salad, no protein whatsoever. It just kills me. It kills me. But you go back to that table, those ladies ordering the salad, and one of them has a burger. They look down on the person that has a burger. We're criminalizing that thought process. Therefore, we're criminalizing protein. And we start to eliminate that out of our diet. Therefore, our body cannot regrow muscle. Therefore, we become frail. We become weak. And even if we are exercising on a regular basis, we're not going to build back that muscle. We're not going to build back that muscle, which is going to make us stronger, as we did when we were kids. No different. You go to whatever your favorite college team is. You go to their football locker room, or you go to their strength trainer, and what is he talking about? Now is he talking about strength? He's talking about making sure you're taking in plenty of calories and plenty of protein to get stronger, and everybody knows that. But we stopped doing that. We stopped doing that because of lifestyle changes. We stopped doing that because of criminalizing of food. We start making those bricks and mortar weaker and weaker. And therefore, as your body starts to metabolize, it starts to recreate cells, which it does, every one of them. Over a period of years, the body has basically replaced all of its cells, but they're replacing them with non-factory parts. They're replacing them with shoddy equipment because we've taken less protein, less nutrients in to make those fine parts that we used to have, making substandard parts. Therefore, you're putting that together and creating a body that is weaker. And by everybody doing it the same way over time, we think that thin skin just happens because time passes on a calendar. It doesn't. It doesn't. It happens because we're doing it to ourselves, because of the lack of nutrition. I have plenty of people, that same work ethic I was talking about earlier, that exercise a lot. They'll exercise. They're regular about their exercise. They may be making it 3 to 5 times a week, but they're not taking in the protein. They're not taking in the nutrients they need to build that back. And that's actually making you go backwards. So again, we've talked about now in the show 13, we talked about activity. We talked about nutrition. You can see where the changes in activity cause us to quit using those different muscles. It actually kills the neural pathways in our brain to those muscles, makes them become dormant. Therefore, we're not sending those signals out. That muscle is not being used, so therefore it's degenerating. And even if we do exercise, if our nutrition isn't there because we've changed our lifestyle, we're not going to regrow those muscles. You can see what those two factors affect ability, directly affect ability. And I really don't think that's a big surprise to anybody. I think it's more or less common information. Well, those are 2 of the 4. The one we're going to talk about next, on the next podcast, I'm going to cover number 3, which is lifestyle. And I'm going to show you point by point, and it's one like any of these that I can talk about for a myriad of time. But I'm going to show you how we make changes in our lifestyle. Whether we think we do or we don't, we actually make them. We make those changes on a daily basis. We make them throughout our life. And that is what is making us deteriorate, not time passing on a calendar. It may seem very simple. And actually, to tell you the truth, once you hear it, you'll see that it's really a lot of common sense. And stay tuned. Stay tuned for number 5 in this 5-part series. And that's the most important one. You've got to get that one right in order to get this whole, you got to get that one right in order to live longer, period. If you don't get that one right, the first 3 don't count, and that's mindset. You've got to have the right mindset. And that's what's killing us. That is really what's killing us. The brain is the most powerful organ in the body. It can make you leap tall buildings. It can make you do amazing things. There's been times when individuals, children even, that have done feats of superhuman strength because they were scared or whatever. Their brain actually made them do that. It's also the organ that can kill you. Unless you get your mindset right, these others don't make a difference. We're talking about the live aging. This is a 5-part series. If you've missed the other, please go back, look up the live aging series. Make sure you check those out. Like and share the program. And thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, stay hydrated and seek your own level of wellness.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.